Good evening, Mr. Tapas Sen. Good evening. It is so nice to have you in our studios. I have heard so much about your productions and especially heard of your fame as a lighting expert. You see, Mr. Sen, the Indian stage today is not what it was, say, some 30 years ago. The advent of the producer is a new thing, and the lighting man has become almost next in importance to the producer. Now, when do you think this new theatre movement started in India and the lighting man came to the limelight?
I can only illuminate with light, not with words, but still I will venture to
Yes,
do whatever I can.
you are
You
welcome.
know, uh, it has been very interesting to work in the field of theatre for the last 25 or 30 years. I had the opportunity of seeing the modern theatre grow before my very eyes. In fact, I was myself growing along side by side when the modern theatre, truly speaking, came into existence in our part. You were right in pointing out that during the last 25 or 30 years, the theater movement in general has received its proper position, dignity, prestige, whatever you call, and it is becoming truly modern in the true sense of the word. That is, the previous to this, we had, at least in our end, in Bengal, there were some established commercial theatres called public theatres. Plays, mostly classic plays, mostly mythologicals and historicals also, and at times social plays also, were produced in the public professional theatres, and they were actually borrowed by the amateurs, the theatrical clubs, institutions for recreational purposes, and they staged those plays. They imitated everything that were being done in the theatre. But after, visibly, perceptibly, after the last Second World War, during the middle of the 40s, there came into existence the Indian People's Theatrical Association, which was actually, definitely, concretely, we can pinpoint, were responsible for creating a modern theatre movement in the true sense of the word. And there only this sort of utilizing the services of the modern stagecraft in the psychological use of the stage lighting, scientific use of the stagecraft, designing and setting, all these things came into being. In this sense, the modern theatre has come into existence, the theatre movement, exactly speaking, outside the commercial theatres, in the by the activities of the various intellectual people uh, coming from literary field, office workers, teachers, professors, and people in other profession. They were doing some sort of experiment on the plays. They had selected modern themes, they had selected adaptations from classics abroad, and also many experiments on Indian classic literature and dramaturgy also. I must name Mr. Bijan Bhattacharya and Mr. Sambhu Mitra, who did the pioneering work of bringing new life to the theatre by staging Nabanna, the play written by Mr. Bijan Bhattacharya. And after that, these new ideas about using lighting, sound effects, music, and creating the scenery in an artistic way. I don't mean there was no scenery and lighting before we people came in, but it was not always very pleasing, artistically satisfying. Somewhat they were very much gaudy, spectacular, but not truly imaginative.
In the process, Mr. Sen, the model lighting man dispensed with the footlights How far do you think that is justifiable?
In the history of the modern stage lighting, initially they were just oil lamps or fat lamps, as it used to be in the our grand olden days of Bharatanaट्य Shastra, and as it is still done in the ritualistic dances. These oil or ghee lamps burning, it has its own mood and all that character. But subsequently, these fat lamps or the lamps fed with gas came in. The gases were the jets were ignited by one person, and there were rows of gas lights. These took place in big cities,
Yes.
like Calcutta and Bombay only. I don't think about the other places
No,
there were
these
much
gas
activity.
lamps were there
Gas
in
lamps
villages
and
also
some covered
before
lamps.
electricity reached the villages.
Ah. After this electricity came, the lamps were spread out in various colors. They were color dipped lamps. They gave colored lights, but even all around distributed. But their intensity could not be controlled. But with the further development of the electrical technology and the illumination art, the spotlights came in, the dimmers came in, which actually help to control the stage lighting. Just like an artist controls his intensity of colors, just like a musician plays his instrument or plays his voice modulations, the subtle nuances, just like that, all this painting by light, creating mood psychologically in keeping with the theme of the play, became a possibility, became a reality after the controlling factors of the light came into the hands of the lighting artist. The the man was no longer called an electrician or just a light man. His responsibility was something artistic, and he was a lighting artist. He was collaborating with the producer to, just like the playwright, to create, to enhance the moods. But there are plays which require more of lighting changes than music, and there are plays which require more of scenic changes or scenic grandeur spectacle than other part. But generally speaking, I believe that this coming of the spotlights and the development of the dimmers and other electrical gadgets created a scope for controlling directional light. And the footlights, as you know, they were actually, I'm coming to your the second point, is that footlight give through an even illumination on the entire stage. And the advantage of footlight is being that it almost resembles the angle of the vision of the spectator. The footlights are actually coming, the lights come fall on the actors, the action and the scene on the stage from the eyes, uh, approximately resembling the eye angle of the spectator, strictly speaking, because the footlights come from the eye level and the angle of the eyes. But footlights, as it is, they are just small domestic lamps of 100 watt or 200 watt each. It is a chain or series of lamps spread all along the curtain line and which throws an even illumination. But because we cannot control the intensity of the lights, which is possible by the spotlight, which controls the direction of the light, and the intensity is concentrated by the lens, here the light is spread all along, even so it flattens the entire stage. So there is, you don't get that subtle change here and there, some strong light, an emphasized action or a clasping hand with a hard spotlight, and a person standing in semi darkness before a window, and a fading sunset beyond the sky. All these things cannot be controlled, done with an even an impartial throw of light from the footlights. So the footlights have subsequently been dispensed with.
Hmm. I would like to know what has been the position that music has held on the Bengali stage. Because here in Karnataka and Maharashtra, music, classical music especially, has been almost as important as acting on the part of the actor. What important part has it played on the Bengali stage, Mr. Sen? Would you like me to know?
This is, I feel, that music has its days, its glorious days. Uh, Sometime back, before we people came in, there was gorgeous, really good music in the theater, and music was not, it was not actually, it couldn't be separated from theater or play production. But subsequently, leaving aside Tagore's plays, music and song in the modern sense, it is somewhat receding back. And I remember some 20 years back, the use of music and orchestration was looked down upon by modern uh, producers and directors and groups. In our part also, the songs, the music in that sense were the dominating factor, and the usual accompaniment of the music in pathetic scenes called pathos music, playing of the violin by the wings whenever something tragic goes on, used to play. Now the modern people came in, and as a form expression of disgust, they did away with the musical part. But now, of course, music is again being given much more importance. But music, I can just divide it in two parts. Music for effects, along with sound effects to create a mood, and music, strictly speaking, the songs or the operatic expression of music, they are the two main divisions to me. The operatic part, the typically continuation of the traditional jatra form in our part or all over, as you know, there the songs or the singing was much important, the choirs and the ballads and the folklore. That has somehow, that importance is lost these days, and I think there is a great deal of important necessity to revive the music, the field of music, its application in the theater. And unfortunately, in our part, the except for one or two producers like Mr. Shobita Brata Datta and one or two others, the music is not given due importance, and the singers are also not coming. And in that, of course, the cinema has again cast its evil shadows by the system of, the playback singing and all that.
Yes.
And my impression about the theater in this part, in your part, is that here the using of the songs and musical accompaniment is, I think, somewhat in a brighter stage than our side.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sen. As an expert of theatre lighting, you have thrown a flood of light on so many aspects connected with the Indian stage in general and the Bengali stage in particular. Thank you so much, Mr. Sen.